Welcome to the Learnetto Podcast. I'm your host Rishi Mittal, the founder of Learnetto, a new place for learning useful tech skills online. Now, whether you're already working in tech or looking to find your first job in tech, you can check out our free and premium courses on web development, making mobile apps, growing businesses, and many more useful skills. Our website is learnetto.com. That's learnetto.com. Today I'm speaking to Laurence Bradford, creator of the popular website Learn to Code with Me. Laurence is a self-taught developer who helps other people learning to code by guiding them through the learning process and building an active community of learners. Let's hear her story. Hi Laurence, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Thank you for joining us today. It's really exciting to have you on the show. I would like to start off by asking you to introduce yourself.
Yeah. Hi, my name is Laurence Bradford, and I have the site Learn to Code with Me. That's learntocodewith.me. And I basically help people who are teaching themselves how to code by putting together resources about where to learn and what to learn. And then I do some other things on the side. I'm the tech careers expert at about.com. And I also run a really active Facebook group called Newbie Coder Warehouse. And it's for people who are teaching themselves how to code.
Great. Tell us a bit about your background. How did you get into this? Where did you start?
So after college, I wasn't really sure exactly what I wanted to do, but I thought I wanted to go into economic development, specifically in Asia, even more specifically in Southeast Asia. So after college, I moved to Thailand and I taught English for 6 months. And then I got a job afterwards at a think tank in Thailand. And it was doing what I thought I wanted to do. As it turns out, it wasn't what I thought it was going to be. So while I was working there, I began teaching myself how to code. I also had a lot of free time at this point after working on the weekends because all of my friends actually left Thailand. So I was alone at this point, living by myself in Bangkok. So I had a lot of time. And one thing sort of led to another. And now here I am. It's almost 3 years later.
So 3 years, that's how long you've been working on your website?
Yeah. Oh, so not my website. That's how long I've been learning how to code for. There were a few times before I really sat down and started teaching myself how to code where I dabbled with WordPress. I also did some stuff with Magento, if anyone's familiar with that. It's a e-commerce CMS. So I did some of these things before, but then it's been about 3 years since I've been teaching myself how to code.
So what sort of areas have you focused on when you say learn to code?
So initially I was kind of, I was a bit misdirected early on, which was part of the motivation of me starting the site. In fact, I tried learning a bunch of different things, a lot of trial and error. I would start courses and not finish them. And then it took me a while to really realize what I enjoyed and what I wanted to do. And that's mostly in the front end web development realm. I also know quite a bit about WordPress. So that's really the type of stuff that I am good at and specialize in. So, HTML, CSS, some JavaScript, WordPress. And that's really just kind of what I do right now. I can write like PHP just because of WordPress. Like I know a bit about it and I know how to do stuff on the back end of WordPress sites, but I don't build like full scale applications on the front end and the back end and, all that stuff. I really only looked at the front end. But before I have taken courses and gone through books and stuff that talked about the back end, but then I realized that wasn't something I was as interested in. And I kind of chose the path to be more of a specialist than a generalist.
I think, I know. I read on your About page that you did Python in the beginning.
Python, yeah. So that was the first programming language I learned or tried to learn. I haven't, used it in a while, but that was where I started.
Okay, great. So tell us about the website specifically. At what point did you think, all right, I need to start this website, and how did that come about?
Yeah, so I had been learning kind of on and off for about a year at this point. And there had been a few times where I would get really frustrated and I would just stop learning altogether, maybe for, 2-3 weeks or something. And then finally, I was getting back into the swing of things again. And I thought a great way to help me stay motivated and kind of hold myself accountable would be to start a blog and to write about it. And when I actually started the site, this was in very late April of 2014. So basically May 2014. And the first few months, that's what I did. But then over time, the blog evolved and it became less about me and more about other people and their journeys. And then also just putting together resources and tips for people that are trying to figure out what to learn and where they should learn.
Okay. And that's your current focus.
Yeah. So it's not really documenting my own journey. It's more so about helping other people who are just starting out, teaching themselves how to code.
Okay, great. And do you have other people writing for the site, or is it just yourself?
So I do have guest posts, and I'm very open to taking posts from all different kinds of people, as long as it relates to coding and is at like a beginner, maybe to intermediate level. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, most of the content on the site is written by me.
Okay, great. So what's your experience been with the site after when it became more than just a personal blog? How have people responded to it?
Yeah, it's been doing really well, I guess. When I first started out, I didn't have like a huge vision for the site or anything. Again, it was really more of a personal blog. And it's kind of funny, if you go back and read some of my older posts, you can definitely sort of see that. And then you can see the switch over time. In fact, there's actually been some things I've deleted or I'm going to start deleting just because it's not on brand anymore. It's really kind of irrelevant and it doesn't really fit with the rest of the site. Sorry, I digressed a little bit there, but that's a project that I'm working on right now, is kind of going back and tweaking some of those things.
Right.
But yeah, so once I really started to make the shift and helping other people and talking about the resources, not so much myself, my own journey, I really began to notice an increase in emails, tweets, and really it was the emails that I would get from people. And I still get them from people saying, I have no idea what to do. And then I found your site and I feel so much more relieved now. And I feel like, I have more of a path to follow. And so once I began getting those kinds of emails, I was like, okay, this is something good that I should definitely keep pursuing because it is helping people.
Yeah, sure. What's your reach? What's the site's reach now? How many followers or subscribers do you have?
So right now I'm getting about 50,000 unique visitors a month. So yeah, that's the metric I really like to use, just the unique visitors. I know with, Google Analytics, there's a bunch you can look at. That's the main one that I really focus on. And then as far as subscribers go, I just hit 10,000 really recently. I think even last week.
Email subscribers.
Yeah. So I get pretty many every day now because I have things set up that kind of it's very automated, I guess you can say.
Sure.
So really a lot of the subscribers have even come just in the last few months because when I first started this site, I wasn't collecting email subscribers. Yeah. So to answer your question, 10,000 email subscribers and then about 50,000 unique visitors a month.
That's a sizable audience. Do the audience help you decide what you write about?
Yeah, so there's definitely a lot of content on the site that has been inspired by questions that people have asked me in the past, or sometimes it's not just one person, it's a bunch of questions or similar questions that I keep getting, and I say, maybe a blog post on this topic would be good. Mm-hmm. And now since, I have been doing it for some time, I'm not just starting out, I have a lot better sense of blog posts that would do well on the site versus ones that maybe wouldn't be as popular. Sure. Of course, it's always experimenting and, some things work, sometimes things don't work, but...
Okay, great. So what sort of frequency, how often do you write on the site?
So before, and this is before 2016, I wasn't very consistent. It's something that, I should have started doing sooner. I just never really made that like a priority. I was looking at some other things. Mm-hmm. So I only would write once every 4 to 6 weeks. However, if you look at my posts, most of them are very long, especially the newer ones. I'm not sure the average word length, but definitely above 2,000 words. I have some that are like 4,500 words. Mm. And now I'm posting every other week. So twice a month, and I always post on a Wednesday. So it's every other Wednesday. And I hope to eventually bring that to once a week. So 4 times a month.
I want to dig a little bit deeper into sort of the motivation, because what I found really interesting about your site and why I contacted you to be on the podcast is I think your site is very unique in that it's very much focused on the students. It addresses something which most other learning sites ignore, which is about there's a lot of stuff out there, but like how do you actually use it? What do you learn when? How do you go about that process? So I just want to sort of learn a bit more from you about what specific problems you faced when you were learning, and which is what informed your decision to make this site.
Yeah, so when you just said about how a lot of the sites out there, the learning platforms or the courses, and there's so many options nowadays, a lot of them focus really just on the skills and teaching the skills and technologies, and not so much on the guidance or the help on what you can do with those skills. And what I find is I talk to a lot of people, and I was one of these people when I first started out, trying to learn like 100 things at once. I was like, oh, I'm going to learn this, and I'm going to learn this, and I'm going to learn this, and all at the same time. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's actually not the way to go about it at all. I think that you really need to think about what your end goals are and, what you can learn to help reach those end goals. Because to me, coding is kind of like a means to an end, right? Mm-hmm. So say if you want to start your own startup, well then, if that's your goal, you should probably learn a certain set of technologies based on that. Whereas if your goal is to get a full-time job as a UX designer, the things you would learn would be completely different. So kind of, figuring out what your end goal is and reverse engineering. Now, of course, and I hear this all the time, a lot of people say, I don't know what my end goal is. I'm unsure, something like that. And honestly, even if you're unsure, it's just better to pick something that you think you want to do, because once you have that idea, it's so much easier to get a clear idea of what it is you should be learning, so you're not learning, 50 different things at once.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I can definitely relate to that. I mean, I started learning programming. I think I just learned some C at the very beginning just because I wanted to see what it was all about. But that never stuck. The thing that stuck was I think finally I wanted to make a website. So I learned some basic HTML and CSS. This was like 20 years ago, 15 years ago maybe now. And that, since then everything I've learned has been very sort of project based. Yeah, picking up stuff because you have a specific goal in mind.
Yeah, that's a great way to say it, project based. And picking up things based on where those goals are. So that's kind of like the way I think about it now. And I try to, I get emails to steer people in the right direction. But ultimately, if a person is really dead set on learning, Java, C++, JavaScript all at the same time, and, 10 other things, then that's their decision. But I think that it's really best to focus on one, key thing at a time.
At the moment, are you still learning new stuff? What kind of things, like what's the latest thing you've learned in terms of tech skills?
So I am learning a lot of stuff still. However, not so much that relates to coding or web development per se. Mm-hmm. Because again, I learn things now, based on what my goals are. So here's like a real life example of something. I'm actually starting my own podcast later this year, not until the spring. It's my tentative launch date is April 26th. Mm-hmm. So hopefully I can make that. That's a Tuesday. So in any case, I know nothing about podcasting. So I buy.
I can relate to that.
So I sign up for a podcast course, and the podcast course is pretty intense. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that goes into it, and I'm learning a whole lot. So it doesn't relate to web development. However, I would argue that there are certain parts of podcasting that are technical. I mean, maybe it's not, writing code, but it's not, you have to use a computer, I still learn new things. Yeah, it's just goal oriented or project oriented. So I don't learn something new just to learn it. Like, I'm completely honest, I don't really have time to do that anymore. And I think a lot of people learning to code, especially when they're, maybe when you're still in college or you're fresh out of college, actually, like I was when I first started learning, I had a lot of time on my hands. Because I was alone in Bangkok without any friends or family. So I had all this free time. But I think for most people, that's not the case. You know, they have families, they have responsibilities, they have full-time jobs, and that's kind of how I feel now. So I only really learn things if I need to learn them to reach my goals.
And you teach on your site in the form of blog posts. Do you teach any courses yourself?
So I have an ebook, and I could, I don't know if you're doing a show notes page for the podcast, but I could send you the link.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
On the site so people can see what that's about. So my ebook, I wrote it in February. I think it came out in late February, if I'm recalling correctly. And that's all about using LinkedIn as a web developer and web designer. And then I also have a course. It's not available right now. I'm going to be reopening it probably in May. And that's just specific to building a portfolio as a web developer. So it does have some technical components in it, but then it also talks about like content and laying out the site. And, you know, just really very deep dive into building a portfolio site. So to answer your question, yes, I do have a course and I do have a book, but they're not the broad coding categories. Yeah.
Okay, I mean, yeah, my interest in asking you that question was, I want to know from your point of view, both because you've been on both sides of the coin as a student and a teacher. What could be done better for online teaching platforms? Because here at Learnetto, it's a very new platform, and we're trying to do some things differently, trying to focus on improving outcomes for both teachers and students. And so I'm really interested to hear from your perspective how things could be better.
Yeah, so it's kind of like a hard question to answer, because I think it really depends also on the person, because people learn, in different ways. Some people are visual, some are, I don't know all the words, I forget, but I think auditory is one. So through listening, other people have to do things, and that's how they learn the best. So I think that's definitely a factor.
Mm-hmm.
However, I think having probably an online course that incorporates a lot of those different learning styles, so it's not just one, is the best approach to take. And another thing to also think about is the price point, right? Because there are some, more affordable options online, and then there's also some much higher priced options online. And I think for a student paying $10, $20, $30 for a course, you really can't have that high of expectations because the financial investment really isn't that big. However, if you're paying for one of these more premium online coding boot camps that may be $500 a month or $1,000 a month, or even some of them are like $10,000, that then should definitely be way more comprehensive, and have support, maybe have like a mentorship component or like a one-on-one study group kind of component to it, as well as real life projects you could build and group projects and a whole slew of other things. I think there's a lot of awesome resources out there, and for the most part, with my experience taking courses, I'm trying to even think if there's ever been a really bad experience. I think
the standard is pretty high generally. I think in my experience, when I've taken courses online, I find some of the platforms, the focus is very much, just to sell you a course, and then there is no sort of re-engagement. I don't know, I think they have some strict rules, some of them, about teachers communicating with students. And so, you drop out. You kind of, the actual completion rates are very low. So that's something that I'm very aware of, and I know it's a very hard problem, but I really like to crack that. So on the price point, where does your course sit there? You said there's a full range from really cheap to really expensive. How much do you charge for your course?
Yeah, so for the ebook that I mentioned before, that's just very low price point. It's $7. I probably will increase the price eventually for that. However, that's kind of, with the thing with ebooks is it's hard to charge a lot for ebooks because people are used to getting ebooks for $5 or less on Amazon Kindle. So,
Sure.
But yeah, with the course, when I first launched it, again, I launched it only for a certain amount of time, and then I closed it. And this was back in September. And I'm redoing the course slowly, and then going to be relaunching it hopefully in May. So when I first launched it, the price point was $64.99, and that was just a one-time fee. It was not subscription or anything. And when I relaunch it, I'm not 100% certain yet, but I'll probably be charging $97 for the basic version. And then what I'm thinking about doing is then so there'll be two different versions of the course, the basic and the premium. And the premium would come with more, features and maybe extra videos, or maybe even a one-on-one Skype call with me or something to that effect.
Okay.
That I charge. significantly higher for them.
So what format is this course? Is it an email course or?
So the course is videos, worksheets. Yeah, that's mostly it. It's mostly videos and worksheets, and then, some other downloadable lists and things like that.
Okay, great. Sounds good. I look forward to it. You said it's reopening in May, right?
Yeah, that's the plan. I think I set a date of May 16th tentatively, but that could definitely be pushed back a little bit or something. But yeah, hopefully in May it gets reopened.
So sort of coming back to your website, Learn to Code with Me. Where do you see taking this project in the future? What's your plan? What are your plans for it?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the rest of this year, 2016, I definitely want to continue growing it. And when I say growing it, I mean, keep writing content on the site and increasing the viewership and increasing the subscribers. I would also like to create some more products in the future. And these products maybe aren't going to be on the Learn to Code With Me blog, but kind of like an offshoot. So the way I think about it is Learn to Code With Me is like the tree trunk. And then I have these things I'm starting to slowly add a little bit more that are kind of like, the branches. So I have the ebook and then I have this course. I'm starting the podcast. However, the podcast will be on the Learn to Code With Me site. That's not, going to be separate. And then I also, as I mentioned before, I have the Facebook group. Mm-hmm. So I have these little things, but the Learn to Code With Me is a home base. And I kind of would like to keep on building these other things that I'm creating off of Learn to Code With Me, as well as Learn to Code With Me itself. And hopefully in the future, I could get into some more things. I'm really interested in the nonprofit space and doing more with encouraging kids to learn to code. Mm-hmm. So hopefully I could do something that relates to that in the future as well.
That sounds great. Yeah, that's a lot of interesting things. Yeah, I hope your site grows in 2016. I'd love to know what your vision is for the future of sort of tech education, either online or in general, even offline.
Yeah, so I guess in person, it depends on, maybe where you live, but in my perspective is really, based in the U.S. because that's where, I'm from and that's what I'm most familiar with. Right now, there's a really big push to get computer science education in more schools because I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, and they do change, every so often, but really, computer science isn't offered in a lot of schools, high schools and lower, not at all. In my high school, we didn't even have a computer science, there's an AP computer science course, and we didn't even have that. I know some high schools do, but mine didn't. So that would be awesome, exposing it to more people at a younger age. So then when they do get to college, they know that, computer science or information technology is an option for them, because I think, at least in my situation, because I never had exposure to it, I never even considered, studying it in college or pursuing it in any way. Mm-hmm. It took me a really long time to even kind of I kept reading about it in the news and the demand for people who know how to code. And finally it all kind of clicked, and then I began teaching myself. So I guess, as far as the formal education goes, that's, what I hope to see in the future. As far as online education goes, I mean, I think things are going really well. There's new, learning sites popping up all the time. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I mean, I think it's great when people have a lot of options. It can become overwhelming when you have so many options and then you don't know where to choose. But then that's why I have my site, because I give people a smaller list of things to choose. And especially over email. When people email me their questions, I am super specific. I'm listen, don't worry about where you're taking the course. Just learn the skills. There are so many HTML and CSS classes out there. There's probably even hundreds or thousands, from Udemy to Treehouse to Code School. It's just, get the skills. Don't spend too much time worrying about where you're getting the skills, especially if it's a free or affordable option.
Yeah, that's a really good way of looking at things. Yeah, I agree with you with respect to school education. I think that things, I'm here in the UK, and there have been a lot of initiatives to improve sort of computer education in schools. But yeah, there's still a long way to go. Like you said, a lot of people don't even know that it's an option, especially a career option. Well, that's all the questions I have for you today. That was really interesting to get your perspective on all these things. Just one final thing is I would like you to tell our listeners where they can connect with you, where they can follow you online?
Yeah, sure. You can find me at Learn to Code with Me, and the URL is learntocodewith.me. And you can also find me in my Facebook group, and that is Newbie Coder Warehouse. If you go to newbiecoderwarehouse.com, there's a button right on the page that if you click it, you'll be brought there within 2 seconds. So you can check me out in those places.
Okay, that's great. We'll include all of these links in the show notes.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Laurence. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Pleasure talking to you as well.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.
That was Laurence Bradford of Learn to Code with Me. Check out her website at learntocodewith.me. You've been listening to the Learnetto Podcast. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen. If you like the podcast, please review us on iTunes so that more people can find it. You can also find all our episodes on our website at learnetto.com/podcast. See you next time.